Kevin. This is my wife Brittany, and today we are reading, what is it, June 10th?
June 10th.
So we'll get started.
We're going to go ahead and be starting in 2 Kings chapter 7, verses 1 to, and then chapter 8, verses 29. Then Elisha said, "Listen to the word of the Lord. Thus says the Lord, tomorrow about this time a measure of fine flour will be sold for a shekel, and 2 measures of barley for a shekel, in the gate of Samaria." The royal officer on whose hand the king was leaning answered the man of God and said, "Behold, if the Lord should make windows in heaven, could this thing be?" Then he said, "Behold, you will see it with your own eyes, but you will not eat of it." Now there were 4 leprous men at the entrance of the gate, and they said to one another, "Why do we sit here until we die? If we say, 'We will enter the city,' then the famine is in the city, and we will die there. And if we sit here, we die also. Now therefore, come and let us go over the camp of the Arameans. If they spare us, we will live, and if they kill us, we will die." They arose at twilight to go to the camp of Arameans. When they came to the outskirts of the camp of the Arameans, behold, there was no one there, for the Lord had caused the army of the Arameans to hear a sound of chariots and the sound of horses, even the sound of a great army, so that they said to one another, "Behold, the king of Israel has hired against us the kings of the Hittites and the kings of the Egyptians to come upon us." Therefore they arose and fled in the twilight, and left their tents and their horses and their donkeys, even the camp just as it was, and fled for their life. Now we have our first note from chapter 7, verse 6. The Hittites and the Egyptians. Sometime before the arrival of lepers, the Lord had made the Syrians hear the terrifying sound of a huge army approaching. They thought the Israelite king had hired 2 massive foreign armies to attack them. The Hittites were descendants of the once great Hittite empire who lived in a small group across northern Syria. This was addressed in 1 Kings chapter 10, verse 29. Egypt was in decline at this time, but its army would still have represented a great danger to the Syrians. Now back in verse 8. When these lepers came to the outskirts of the camp, they entered one tent and ate and drank, and carried from there silver and gold and clothes, and went and hid them. And they returned and entered another tent, and carried from there also, and went and hid them. Then they said to one another, "We are not doing right. This day is a day of good news, but we are keeping silent. If we wait until morning light, punishment will overtake us. Now therefore come, let us go and tell the king's household." So they came and called the gatekeepers of the city, and they told them, saying, "We came to the camp of the Arameans, and behold, there was no one there, nor the voice of man, only the horses tied and the donkeys tied, and the tents just as they were." The gatekeepers called and told it with the king's household. Then the king arose in the night and said to his servants, "I will now tell you what the Arameans have done to us. They know that we are hungry, therefore they have gone from camp to hide themselves in the field, saying, 'When they come out of the city, we will capture them alive and get into the city.' One of his servants said, 'Please let some men take 5 of the horses which remain, which are left in the city. Behold, they will be in any case like all the multitude of Israel who are left in it. Behold, they will be in any case like all the multitude of Israel who have already perished. So let us send and see.' They took therefore 2 chariots with horses, and the king sent after the army of the Arameans, saying, 'Go and see.' They went after them to the Jordan, and behold, all the way was full of clothes and equipment which the Arameans had thrown away in their haste. Then the messengers returned and told the king. So the people went out and plundered the camp of the Arameans. Then a measure of fine flour was sold for a shekel, and 2 measures of barley for a shekel, according to the word of the Lord. Now the king appointed the royal officer on whose hand he leaned to have charge of the gate. But the people trampled on him at the gate, and he died just as the man of God had said, who spoke when the king came down to him. It happened just as the man of God had spoken to the king, saying, 2 measures of barley for a shekel, and a measure of fine flour for a shekel will be sold tomorrow about this time at the gate of Samaria. Then the royal officer answered the man of God and said, Now behold, if the Lord should make windows in heaven, could such a thing be? And he said, Behold, you will see with your own eyes, but you will not eat of it. And so it happened to him, for the people trampled on him at the gate, and he died. Now Elisha spoke to the woman whose son he had restored to life, saying, Arise and go with your household, and the sojourn whatever you can sojourn. For the Lord has called for a famine, and it will even come on the land for 7 years. So the woman arose and did according to the word of the man of God. She went with her household and sojourned in the land of the Philistines for 7 years. At the end of the 7 years, the woman returned from the land of the Philistines, and she went out to appeal to the king for her house and for her field. Now the king was talking with Gizai, the servant of the man of God, saying, Please relate to me all great things that Elisha has done. As he was relating to the king how he had restored to life the one who was dead, behold, the woman whose son he had restored to life appealed to the king for her house and for her field. And Gizai said, My lord, O king, this is the woman, and this is her son, whom Elisha restored to life. When the king asked the woman, she related it to him. So the king appointed her a certain officer, saying, Restore all that was hers, and all the produce of the field from the day that she left the land, even until now. Then Elisha came to Damascus. Now Benhadad, king of Aram, was sick, and it was told to him, saying, The man of God has come here. The king said to Hazael, Take a gift in your hand, and go to meet with the man of God, and inquire of the Lord by him, saying, Will I recover from this sickness? So Hazael went to meet with him and took the gift in his hand, even every kind of good thing of Damascus, 40 camels' loads. And he came and stood before him and said, Your son Benhadad, king of Aram, has sent me to you, saying, Will I recover from this sickness? Then Elisha said to him, Go say to him, You will surely recover. But the Lord has shown to me that he will certainly die. He fixed his gaze steadily on him until he was ashamed, and the man of God wept. Hazael said, Why does my Lord weep? Then he answered, Because I know the evil that you will do to the sons of Israel. Their strongholds you will set on fire, and their young men you will kill with the sword, and their little ones you will dash in pieces. Now we have a note here from chapter 8, verse 10, recover and die. Benhadad wanted to know whether or not he would recover from his present illness. In response, Elisha affirmed two interrelated things. One, Benhadad would be restored to health. His present sickness would not be the means of his death, and Benhadad would surely die by some other means. The next note is from chapter 8, verse 11. He was ashamed with a fixed gaze. Elisha stared at Hazael because it would have been revealed to him what Hazael would do, including the murder of Benhadad. Hazael was embarrassed, knowing that Elisha knew of his plan to assassinate the Syrian king. So now after we're back in, and their little ones you would dash in pieces, and their women with child you will rip up. Then Hazael said, But what is your servant, who is but a dog, that he should do this great thing? And Elisha answered, The Lord has shown me that you will be king over Aram. So he departed from Elisha and returned to his master, who said to him, What did Elisha say to you? And he answered, He told me that you would surely recover. On the following day he took cover and dipped in the water and spread it on his face so that he died. And Hazael became king in his place. Now in the 5th year of Joram, the son of Ahab, king of Israel, Jehoshaphat being then the king of Judah, Jehoram, son of Jehoshaphat, king of Judah, became king. He was 32 years old and he became king, and he reigned 8 years in Jerusalem. He walked in the way of the king of Israel, just as the house of Ahab had done. For the daughter of Ahab became his wife, and he did evil in the sight of the Lord. However, the Lord was not willing to destroy Judah for the sake of David, his servant, since he had promised him to give him a lamp through his son always. In his days, Edom revolted from under the hand of Judah and made king over themselves. Then Joram crossed over Zair and all his chariots with him. And he arose by night and struck the Edomites who had surrounded him and captains of the chariots. But his army fled to their tents. So Edom revolted against Judah to this day. Then Libnah revolted at the same time. The rest of the acts of Joram and all he did, are they not written in the book of Chronicles of the king of Judah? So Joram slept with his fathers and was buried with his fathers in the city of David. Ahaziah his son became king in his place. In the 12th year of Joram, the son of Ahab, king of Israel, Ahaziah, son of Jehoram, king of Judah, began to reign. Ahaziah was 22 years old when he became king, and he reigned 1 year in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Athaliah, the granddaughter of Omri, king of Israel. He walked in the way of the house of Ahab and did evil in the sight of the Lord, like the house of Ahab had done, because he was the son-in-law of the house of Ahab. When he went with Joram, son of Ahab, to war against Hazael, king of Aram, at Ramoth Gilead, and the Arameans wounded Joram. So King Joram returned to be healed in Jerusalem of the wounds which the Arameans had inflicted on him at Ramah when he fought against Hazael, king of Aram. Then Ahaziah, son of Jehoram, king of Judah, went down to see Joram, the son of Ahab, in Jezreel, because he was sick. Now we're going to be doing Psalm chapter 72, verses 8 through 16. May he also roll from sea to sea and from river to the ends of the earth. Let the nomads of the desert bow before him. Let his enemies lick the dust. Let the kings of Tarshish and of the islands bring presents. The kings of Sheba and Sheba offer gifts. Now we have a note for Psalms 72:10. Tarish Sheba. Countries near and far was brought tribute to Solomon. This is stated in 1 Kings 4:21, chapter 10:1, verses 23 through 24, Isaiah 60:4 through 7, and Jeremiah 6:20. Tarshish is probably in Spain, Sheba a kingdom in southern Arabia or modern Yemen, and Seba a North African nation. Now we're picking back up in verse 11. And let all things bow down before him, all nations serve him, for he will deliver the needy when he cries for help. The afflicted will also, and him who is no helper, he will have compassion on the poor and the needy, and the lives of the needy he will save. He will rescue their life from oppression and violence, and their blood will be precious in the sight. So may he live, and may the gold of Sheba be given to him, and let them pray for him continually. Let them bless him all day long. May there be abundance of grain in the earth on top of the mountains. Its fruit will wave like the cedars of Lebanon, and may those from the city flourish like vegetation of the earth. Now we're going to be doing Proverbs 18:12 through 13. Before destruction in the heart of man is haughty, but humility goes before honor. He who gives answer before he hears, it is folly and shame to him. Now we're going to be finishing up in the New Testament with John chapter 18, verses 19 through 40. The high priest then questioned Jesus about his disciples and about his teaching. Jesus answered him, saying, I have spoken openly to the world. I always taught in synagogues and in temples where all the Jews come together, and I spoke nothing in secret. Why do you question me? Question those who have heard what I spoke to them. They know what I said. When he had said this, one of the officers standing nearby struck Jesus, saying, Is that the way you answer the high priest? Jesus answered him, If I have spoken wrongly, testifying of the wrong, but if rightly, why do you strike me? So Annas sent him bound to Caiaphas the high priest. Now Simon Peter was standing and warming himself, so they said to him, You are not also one of his disciples, are you? He denied it and said, I am not. One of the slaves of the high priest, being a relative of one of those whose ear Peter cut off, said, Did I not see you in the garden with him? Peter then denied it again, and immediately a rooster crowed. Then they led Jesus from Caiaphas into the praetorium, and it was early, and they themselves did not enter the praetorium, so that they would not be defiled, but might eat Passover. Therefore Pilate went out to them and said, "What accusation do you bring against this man?" They answered and said to him, "If this man were not an evildoer, we would not have delivered him to you." So Pilate said to them, "Take him yourselves and judge him according to your law." The Jews said to him, "We are not permitted to put anyone to death, to fulfill the word of Jesus which he spoke, signifying by what kind of death he was about to die." Therefore Pilate entered again into the praetorium and summoned Jesus and said to him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" Jesus answered, "Are you saying this on your own initiative, or did others tell you about me?" Pilate answered, "I am not a Jew, am I? Your own nation and the chief priests delivered you to me. What have you done?" Jesus answered, "My kingdom is not of this world. If my kingdom were of this world, then my servants would be fighting so that I would not be handed over to the Jews. But as it is, my kingdom is not of this realm." Therefore Pilate said to him, "So you are a king?" Jesus answered, "You say correctly that I am a king. For this I have been born, and for this I have come into the world, to testify the truth. Everyone who is of this truth hears my voice." Pilate said to him, "What is truth?" And when he had said this, he went out again to the Jews and said to them, "I find no guilt in him, but you have a custom that I release someone for you at the Passover. Do you wish then that I release for you the king of the Jews?" So they cried out again, saying, "Not this man, but Barabbas." Now Barabbas was a robber. Now we have a note for chapter 18, verse 36. "My kingdom is not of this realm." By this phrase, Jesus meant that his kingdom is not connected to earthly political and national entities, nor does it have its origin in the evil world system that is in rebellion against God. If his kingdom was of this world, he would have fought. The kingship of this world preserves themselves by fighting with force. Messiah's kingdom does not originate in the efforts of man, but with the Son of Man forcefully and decisively conquering sin in the lives of his people, and someday conquering the evil world system at his second coming when he establishes the earthly form of his kingdom. His kingdom was no threat to the national identity of Israel or the political military identity of Rome. It exists in the spiritual dimension until the end of the age, as stated in Revelation chapter 11, verse 15. So now we're going to conclude with our day 10 note, which is, why was the trial of Jesus conducted by the Romans rather than the Sanhedrin? Jesus was led from the trial before Caiaphas to the praetorium in John 18, verse 28. This was the headquarters of the commanding officer of the Roman military camp, or headquarters of the Roman military governor, i.e. Pilate. Pilate's normal headquarters was in Caesarea, in the palace that Herod the Great had built for himself. However, Pilate and his predecessors made it a point to be in Jerusalem during feasts in order to quell any riots. Jerusalem became his praetorium, or headquarters. It was early in the morning. The word is ambiguous. Most likely it refers to around 6 a.m., since many Roman officials began their day very early and finished by 10 or 11 a.m. Those who brought Jesus did not go into the praetorium so that they would not be defiled. Jewish oral law gives evidence that a Jew who entered the dwelling palace of Gentiles became ceremonially unclean. Their remaining outside in the colonnade avoided the pollution. John loads this statement with great irony by noting the chief priest's scrupulousness in the matter of ceremonial cleansing, when all the time they were incurring incomparably greater moral defilement by the proceedings against Jesus. What accusation? Asked in verse 29. This question formally opened the Roman civil phrase of proceedings against Jesus. The fact that the Roman troops were used at the arrest proves that the Jewish authorities communicated something about this case to Pilate in advance. Although they most likely had expected Pilate to confirm their judgment against Jesus and order his death sentence, Pilate ordered instead a fresh hearing in his presence. When Pilate told them to take Jesus back and try them themselves, the Jews objected on the basis that we are not permitted to put anyone to death in verse 31. When Rome took over Judea and began direct rule through a perfect through a prefect in AD 6. Capital jurisdiction, i.e., the right to execute, was taken away from the Jews and given to the Roman governor. Capital punishment was the most jealously guarded of all attributes in Roman provincial administration. By Roman crucifixion, it also fulfilled the word of Jesus in verse 32 that he would die by being lifted up. This was in chapter 3:14, 8:28, and chapters 12, verses 32 through 33. If the Jews had executed him, it would have been by throwing him down and stoning him. But God providentially controlled all the political procedures to assure that when the sentence was finally passed, he would be crucified by the Romans and not stoned by the Jews, as was Stephen. This was in Acts chapter 7, verse 59. And that is all of our notes for today, and we'll pick it back up tomorrow, June 11th.
So, thank you. We appreciate you watching.
And we'll see you guys tomorrow.